Good evening. My name is Lynn Komansky, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of the Ann Arbor area, serving all of Washtenaw County. I welcome you to our Zoom forum featuring 4 of the 7 candidates for the public schools of the City of Ann Arbor board member positions. Immediately following this forum, we will host the remaining 3 candidates in a second forum. All the candidates will be on the ballot in the general election on Tuesday, November 3rd. This year, the League of Women Voters is celebrating 100 years of expanding voter rights, educating voters, and shaping and influencing legislation at local, state, and national levels. We are pleased to sponsor these forums. The League is a nonpartisan civic organization that encourages informed and active participation by all citizens in government. While the League does not support candidates or parties, we do take stands on issues that we have studied. One of the League's most important goals is to assist voters in making informed choices at the polls, and thus we bring you tonight's program. Our moderator this evening is Krystle Komansky, who will explain the format and get us started. Chris?
Thank you, Lynn. Tonight's forum is the first of 2 for the public schools of the City of Ann Arbor board member positions. This forum will feature 4 of the 7 candidates, and immediately following, there will be a second forum with the remaining 3 candidates. Now it's my honor to introduce the first 4 of 7 candidates running for the public schools of the City of Ann Arbor board member positions. Ms. Krystle DuPree, Mr. Jeff Gaynor, Ms. Jamilla James, and Ms. Maggie Kennel. Thank you, candidates, for participating in this forum. The forum tonight will have this format. Each candidate will have an opening statement of up to 1 minute. Each candidate will have a closing statement of up to 90 seconds. In between, I will ask questions which came from the Ann Arbor community. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to a question. At appropriate times, a sign on the screen will indicate the time remaining, 30 seconds, and then stop. If you have used up your time, you'll be allowed to finish your sentence, and then your microphone will be muted so the other candidates will have an equal opportunity to participate. The candidates will begin by speaking in alphabetical order. Depending on the number of questions, all candidates will have an opportunity to be the first or last to answer the questions. Okay, we're up to the opening statement time, and we're ready for your opening statement, Krystle DuPree. Okay, unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry, I was having all the technical difficulties in this very moment. So my name is Krystle DuPree. I am a mother here in Ann Arbor Public Schools. I have a 9-year-old son that attends Thurston Elementary School. I am a veteran. That's actually how I ended up in Ann Arbor. I'm originally from the west side of Detroit. I came to Ann Arbor following military service in order to obtain a college education. So I have a undergraduate degree in social work from Eastern Michigan University, and I have a master's degree from the University of Michigan. I'm also a member of COPA, which is the Coalition for Parents, Advocates, and Attorneys. I decided to join COPA as a way to help me learn how to advocate for my own son and his special education needs. I find it to be a valuable resource because now I can actually help other parents as well when they have questions. I'm running for school board because I care about the district and how the schools actually connect to our community at large.
Thank you, Ms. DuPree. And now, Jeff Gaynor, may we have your opening statement?
Thank you. Yes, Jeff Gaynor. I was born and raised in Detroit, proud graduate of the Detroit Public Schools. Came to Ann Arbor as a freshman at the university in 1968. Earned my degree in elementary education in 1978. I've been a teacher, or I was a teacher for 38 years, split pretty evenly between elementary school and middle school. I've taught every grade from 1 through 8. In 2016, I announced I was retiring, and I was approached by parents and teachers who urged me to run for the school board. They said I was the teacher who at staff meetings would speak up when everybody else wanted to, but maybe were uncertain about doing so. So I did run. and I was elected. So I have a record to be judged by for the last 4 years. I think many people are pleased with my openness and transparency and voting as a matter of conscience. I'm sure I've pleased some and displeased others, but there's still work to be done, and I look forward to serving longer.
Thank you, Mr. Gaynor. And we are ready for your opening statement, Jamilla James.
Hello, everyone. Sorry about that. I've been having
Okay. We're losing the feed from Jamilla.
I think that we are not preparing our children for the current future. I think that we focus a lot on kids that are going to college, but everyone else get kind of lost in the trenches. I am for social emotional learning, restorative justice. I want skilled trades back into the school. I'm for equity, and I'm about life skills. I always ask parents the question that if your kids graduated from high school today and they didn't have your money and your support system, would they be able to survive? Based on today's school system, they would not. And I feel like it's our responsibility to prepare them for the real world. I also want money management to be a requirement for graduation. I want to take care of our children holistically. My only loyalty is to the students, to the kids, and I'm going to take care of all the kids just like I took care of mine. I have a child that's still in the school system at Skyline. My two oldest have graduated, one from college, one I actually pulled for Pioneer because it wasn't working for us. So I want to be there to take care of all of your kids like I take care of mine.
Okay, thank you, Ms. James. And finally, may we have your opening statement, Maggie Kennel.
Hi, my name is Maggie Kennel. I am a parent of 3 current students enrolled in the Ann Arbor Public Schools. I have a 6th grader, a 9th grader, and an 11th grader. And my husband and I both grew up in Ann Arbor. We're both graduates of Ann Arbor Public Schools. My husband went to Pioneer, I went to Huron. So we have a lot of experience as students. And one of the reasons we chose to raise our kids here is because of the rich educational experiences that we experienced while we were here. And we wanted to make sure that our kids had the same opportunities. When I started my kids in the schools here, I started my journey on volunteering in the schools. So I have been in the school system for the last 11 years, and I am running for the school board because I feel a call to action to improve the experiences of our teachers, our students, our parents, our administrators, and community members. And I think to do this, we need to increase transparency, have more honest communication. We need to shape better learning models. We need to work on equal educational experiences for all. We need to increase our board accountability. And because of my experiences in the school system, I'm going to be ready on day 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you, candidates. And now to the questions. As a reminder, I'll be reading the question once and it will not be repeated unless requested. To begin tonight, we'll start with Jeff Gaynor for the first question. And here it is. Being an effective school board member requires deep and wide knowledge of the district, how it operates, how it's funded, what each school's strengths and weaknesses are, how teachers are treated, what administrators do, and that's just a start. What do you bring to the table that makes you the candidate of choice? Which areas of the job might you need to learn more about in order to be an effective leader? Mr. Gaynor?
When I first ran in 2016, I ran based on my 38 years of classroom teaching experience, grades 1 through 8, and some subbing at various times in the high school. So I know the reality in the classroom. I have taught at several schools. Before my 32 years in Ann Arbor Public Schools, I've taught in other districts, other towns. So I have a broad knowledge of how schools operate at the classroom level and certainly at the building level. Since I've been on the board, I've learned a lot more. I knew the basics of finance. Everybody here has been learning and knows a great deal, but you do have a better understanding once you're on the board, starting with classes or workshops with the Michigan Association of School Boards, and also being on committees. I think I've been on 7 committees, from planning to performance to finance, which I'm the chair of now. I'm the liaison to the City Schools Committee and to the Washtenaw Association of School Board. I also do an incredible amount of reading and research on issues of our time. It does take time, it does take dedication, it certainly takes a commitment to our students, as Jamilla says. And it's also important to have an open channel with all stakeholders in the district, students, teachers, parents, and other community members. And as secretary of the board, that was my mission, to make sure communication was two-way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaynor. And now Ms. James. Okay. Jamilla,
so-
are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Can you
can
hear me?
hear you. Oh, there you are.
Okay. So as a parent for the past 16 years, and one of those parents that are always in and out the schools and in and out the offices, I know how the classroom works because I've also been like a room parent, and I'm that crazy evolved parent. So I know how the school classrooms work. I know how the principal more or less work because I'm always picking somebody's brain about something. I know a little bit about how the board works as far as that they write the policies and they are the ones that are responsible for Dr. Swift's actions when it's all said and done, whoever the superintendent is. I think that life is about a constant learning. There's always something else that you can learn and learn more about and learn a different perspective of. As a parent, I have one perspective. As a board member, I'll learn other perspectives, as well as get the perspectives for other people involved in the decision making, because I'll be talking to them and I'll be involved in the process. That's it, I guess.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. James. Now Ms. Kennel.
Thank you. So I think that one of the strengths that I bring to the board is that I have a 20 years as a research scientist. So I know how to look through data. I know how to look for creditable sources. As a parent with over 11 years of experience in the schools, as I've been across 2 different PTOs. I've served for 3 years as a PTO president across 2 school systems. I'm actively been fundraising with silent auctions in the schools. I have a very wide network of parents across the entire district that I interact with and communicate on a regular basis. And they're one of the reasons that I chose to run this year was because of all of the issues we've been kind of overturning throughout the school system. I also think that, for the last couple of years, I've really been following the school board and looking into finance and how schools are allowing in-district transfers and school of choice, and looking to see if that's adding to our inequities across the district. And so I think that I have a good basis and understanding of what the board does, although I'm ready to step in and learn from the people who have the experience on the board. I do think that there are some areas that I'm going to have to learn more about. One of them is special education. I don't actually have any children that have actually needed any special education services. And so I know that that is definitely an area of weakness on my part, and I will definitely look forward to reviewing and learning and hearing from the parents and the experts so that we can help make better policies moving forward. But overall, I think it's just my interactions, my ability to lead in the district, and my willingness to look for the people who are the experts and can provide insight into the issues so that I, as a board member, can make an informed decision.
Thank you, Ms. Kennel. Now Ms. DuPree.
Okay, so really tossing over this, and one of the things that I bring to the table with being a social worker is in order for you to remain licensed, you have to have continuing education. So I chose a profession that pretty much made me a lifelong learner. So I'm always about learning. Also evidence-based practice requires a ton of research, and I love to do research. It's one of the things that I really, really enjoy. I'm also skilled in program evaluation and development. So that was one of my focuses at the University of Michigan, and also public policy analysis. So I worked at Mothering Justice as a public policy analyst for a very, short period of time. There, I was also supervising those who were in our fellowship program for public policy analysts. So I say all this to say, when it comes to really understanding how the community connects to schools, I've also reached out to different organizations that we're currently working with. For example, we're working with the University of Michigan Depression Center and learning more about how these programs connect to our school, how do we expand on programs like this and deepen our partnerships. So that is something that I'm able to bring. As far as learning more, I was actually very happy to hear that we had training for the board. I reached out to a couple of board members and they said, yeah, we have this training. And that was amazing because I love trainings. I love to learn and I want to be effective and proficient at what I do. So I'm looking forward to doing that training. I think learning how we can specifically pay for some of these programs, particularly anything related to DEI or cultural responsiveness. I think that's something that I want to look heavy into, just to make sure that we're listening to the community when we're speaking of these type of issues and coming up with tangible ways to address them that is also cost effective. So.
Okay, thank you, candidates. Now we'll move to question 2. Okay, your second question is about COVID-19. And this is a big question. In fact, it's many questions in one. So think of the pandemic's ramifications on our schools, children, teachers, parents, and community. You've been around for the discussions. You've been around for the directives that came from the school district and for the reactions from every corner. Were the right decisions made? What is the ongoing prognosis for our distance learning methodology? How do we address the lost time for students who are not experiencing in-person instruction? Who should be our advisors and our experts? What further role is there for the board to play? Now, this is a lot for you to answer in just a short time slot. So please focus on what your top priorities would be for addressing the effects of COVID-19 on our schools and students if you're elected to the board. Ms.
I'm sorry, you went out. Could you repeat that question again? It was a lot of them in there.
Okay, it's about COVID-19, and you think of the pandemic's ramifications on our schools, children, teachers, parents, and community. You've been around for the discussions, you've been around for the directives that came from the school district, and for the reactions from every corner. Were the right decisions made? What is the ongoing prognosis for our distance learning methodology? How do we address the lost time for students who are not experiencing in-person instruction? Who should be our advisors, our experts? What further role is there for the board to play? So again, that's a lot to answer in a short time slot. So please focus on what your top priorities would be for addressing the effects of COVID-19 on our schools and students if you're elected to the board.
So first off, I am a nurse by profession. So I absolutely believe that the right call was made. We do not know a lot about this virus. Our information is continually evolving, and if the top priority should be our children's safety. So I 100% agree with the decision to go online. The way we're going to have to address the learning deficit is that we're going to have to make sure that these kids are getting the tutoring they need, they're getting the support that they need. We get the kids with IEPs at 504s at K through 5 in as soon as possible, because they're going to be the ones that's suffering the most at this point in time, because it's very difficult for them to do online learning. Who should we consult as the experts? It depends on which aspect you're talking about. If you're talking about continuing the education and re-upping them because they've been out of school so long, or because they're doing online learning, I think the experts are the teachers. They've worked with these kids while they've been online. They are the ones that have the degree in teaching, and I think that we should listen to them to see which is the best ways to do it. If we're talking about when to go back to school, we have to look at the virus count, the metrics, and make sure that it's actually safe for the children to go back. I do recognize that it is very inconvenient. It's a pain in the butt. It's difficult. It's difficult. It's a very difficult situation we are all in as parents, especially parents of younger children. But we have to take into their safety into consideration above all things. I think that as a school board member, it's also my responsibility to make sure not only that we're making safe decisions, but that we are making equitable decisions, making sure that the people that need the most support are getting the most support. And it doesn't matter where they live or what grade they are or what type of support we have. It's up to us to take care of it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. James. Now, Ms. Kennel.
Yeah, so I agree with Jamilla. I am by training a cellular molecular biologist. I have over 8 publications. I work currently at the Michigan Hospital in the Blood and Marrow Transplant Center for Adult and Pediatrics. And I actually work with immunocompromised people. That's what my job is. And I do clinical trials in this realm. So my background in pharmaceuticals, because I worked at Pfizer for 10 years, as well as doing clinical research, kind of give me an edge in understanding this virus. We don't know a lot about it. It's going to be changing, and our children need to be protected. Children are the most vulnerable population when you look at clinical trials, and they need special protection. So I think that putting our children in the schools is definitely us allowing a trial to take place where we don't actually have the data out there yet because we shut down so quickly in March. So we need to make sure that as we reopen, we have very good safety protocols in place. We have good plans. I know that they're going to only bring back like 20 to 30% at the beginning, and they're going to start at the K through young 5s through 2nd grade. So I think that those are important protocols that we need to put in place. I think that we're going to have to measure the deficits as we start to return to teachers being in person. And I think that we need to make sure that we're thinking outside the box and how we're going to work to build off of those deficits so their children can be effective learners when they come back to school eventually. While we're online, there are a lot of tools. I think we need to turn to experts in the community, partner with our Washtenaw Intermediate School District, see how other school districts are doing it. And I think that we can utilize the things that are working positively across the districts and combine them to make the best, most effective process moving forward. I also think that we can utilize what our teachers are telling us, and we need to listen to the parents so that we can understand what the school system needs to put in place and what is most urgent.
Thank you, Ms. Kennel. And now, Ms. DuPree.
Okay, so COVID. I do feel like closing the schools and going virtual was the best decision to make right now, given all the information that we have. Just on, what is this, October 7th? Well, actually Tuesday, we got a notification from Ann Arbor Public Schools stating that there was a football team, Huron Valley Varsity, that students had to be quarantined on the team because there was a positive case of COVID. So I really do believe that it was the right thing to do to close. As far as making up for lost time, I do think that we should either delay or cancel standardized testing this year. Unfortunately, some of our kids are going to be much farther behind than others. And it's not really standardized if everyone is not getting the exact same opportunity to do well on the testing. So I really feel like it would be a good idea to look into that when we're talking about lost times and how our students are affected. Also having advice from public health officials and also behavioral health officials. Again, like I stated, the University of Michigan Depression Center already has a partnership with Ann Arbor Public Schools. So how is this affecting our students not being able to have the same type of interaction with teachers and fellow classmates? So another thing that we can do to advise what's going on. I know that currently our district is looking at the ventilation systems and different PPE so that when we are able to go back to school, that we'll be safe in considering the safety of teachers and our students. But again, I do think that right now, as the best option that we had was to really close and go online virtual. And I do support going hybrid when we're able to do so.
Okay, thank you, Ms. DuPree. And now, Mr. Gaynor.
There are a number of issues, broad issues that the board has to be aware of and learn about and make decisions about. Nothing has come close to the intensity and complexity of this one. And there are 2 parts to it. There's the question of how and when we return to in-person instruction. And as we're all experiencing in the school system now, how to best do virtual. We are working with the Washtenaw County Health Department and other experts and other data sources and research sources. And we also have the benefit of dozens and dozens of parents, often epidemiologists, medical doctors, who are sending us articles to read. And so that makes up many hours of my day, just trying to stay up with the research. And we have developed metrics. And there's some difference of opinion. It becomes a judgment issue, but I am in agreement with these metrics that we have to consider the safety of not only the children, but the adults that will be with them in a closed space for 7 hours a day in school, as well as family members that the children come back to. I also in agreement with the plan to bring back students with individual education plans and the youngest students, as Maggie says, young 5 to 2nd graders. In fact, we were having conversations with the superintendent to do so before the recent spike in cases. We have a lot of improvement to do, and this is expected with virtual learning. There's a lot of new things. I did research on Schoology, the learning platform, and advised against it, and that's a tremendous strain on teachers and families right now. There are advantages to it. We're making adjustments with schedules and with some of the curriculum issues, and that's going to be ongoing.
Okay, thank you, candidates. Now, the next 2 questions concern initiatives that are high priorities for both Washtenaw County and Ann Arbor. So here's question 3. With the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion program, there's a need to understand what the Black Lives Matter movement means to students, especially after the Pioneer High School episode referring to ongoing discrimination in our high schools. What can the board do to see that this matter is a top priority initiative that is addressed and solved, and that there's a safe environment for those airing their concern? Kennel.
I'm so sorry. Can you please repeat the end of that again?
Okay. Well, what can the board do to see that this matter is a top priority initiative, and that's the Diversity and Equity and Inclusion program, that is addressed and solved, and that there's a safe environment for those airing their concerns?
So this is a question that we've all been seeing a lot, and I think it's an important one in our district. I think that we need to take the time, first of all, to acknowledge what is going on, and we need to listen. We need to be aware of what the issues are, and we need to create a safe space for people to share those ideas and those concerns. Sometimes that might mean small groups, sometimes that might mean one-on-one. I think we also need to reach out to the schools directly, individually. Some schools seem to be more affected than others based on the population and their diversity makeup. So I think that the teachers and the administrators at that school will be able to give us a lot of insight. I think that the counselors need to be utilized. There's a lot of counselors that, have been hearing these issues and dealing with them in the school district. And I think that we need to listen to their voice. And I think that we need to create safe spaces where people are allowed to voice these opinions without repercussions. I think that students also need to be able to have a forum that they're allowed to either, anonymously or vocally be able to give us the information that's needed as a board. And then I think we need to start looking at what those root causes are and how we can change them. It maybe come down into changing some of the curriculum in the schools. It might come down to hosting trainings. I know they do a lot of drug and social and emotional building with the high schoolers when they get in. So it's going to come down to making this a priority as a curriculum topic for our students, and so that we can build a safe space where people can learn, can discuss, and have open communication about these topics so that we can all learn and move forward. And then I think we need to look at our ability as a district to reprioritize our students' voices by hopefully adding a student to the school board.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kennel. Now, Ms. DuPree.
Thank you. So since the beginning of my campaign, I've been talking about coalition building meetings and also making sure that we have a student representative on the school board. One of the things I've also talked about was being instrumental and wanting to be instrumental in the development and implementation of a discrimination tracking system in our district, which is one of the asks of the students for Pioneer High School. As someone who has really dedicated their life to advocacy and service, and most of my work has been working towards dismantling systemic racism. I am a chapter lead for Black Lives Matter Ann Arbor, and I've been doing this work as far as organizing for about 6 years. I've also organized with the Poor People's Campaign. I think that the coalition building meetings are a great thing, but we need tangible steps, and that would be the implementation of a discrimination tracking system. We also need to make sure that teachers are getting anti-bias training. Now, as someone who was so uplifted and elevated by their teachers, I wanted to say that this is not saying that there's something wrong with them and that they don't know what they're doing, but it is to say that the idea of unconscious bias is something that we all deal with and we all have to address. And in order for you to do your job effectively, and I know this as well as being someone as a soldier, you have to actually address those biases. So these are some of the tangible steps that we can make. We can also form a stronger coalition with the University of Michigan Program Evaluation Group, where they will be able to give us a culturally responsive evaluation and possibly be able to help develop a curriculum that is, again, culturally responsive. I am a very big fan of an integrated learning model, which again involves culturally responsive teaching and integrated services. It helps with special education services, particularly when we're talking about how that intersection of ability and race actually affects Black and Indigenous children of color who experience these different discriminations. I think that we can work very hard in the intellectual space that we're in to do some actual steps toward making our children feel safe in our district.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. DuPree. And now Mr. Gaynor.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to my career as a classroom teacher. We've been talking about the racial achievement gap throughout 3 decades and longer. But we talk about it, but we skirt around the issues. Maybe, I can't remember, about 10 years ago, we faced it for the first time head on in staff meetings. We had what's known as courageous conversations, where we were encouraged, these are some of the safe spaces, to talk about our own experiences and to share really deep experiences we've had and we've witnessed. And I felt the environment changed at that point, and that the sharing of this did lead to, did transfer to how we worked with students. I'm not sure that, that did not continue after 2 or 3 years. And we are doing things. The new lessons that are being designed, that are being set up for the whole school, does include cultural responsive teaching elements in it. But at some point, I feel it's more symbolic, more rhetoric, more pattern than it is deep, deeply held and integrated in with everything. But I haven't been in the classroom, but I know there is an attempt to include that in our lessons. The administration has been working on an equity plan for almost 2 years now, but so far it's only include administrators. And it's really important that the board takes its responsibility seriously and not just support the administration, but really asserts itself in a way that we make this a priority, that we bring it to our schools, to our teachers, not just at the administrative level. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Gaynor. Now, Ms. James.
Chris, could you please repeat the question?
Okay. With the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion program, there's a need to understand what the Black Lives Matter movement means to students, especially after the Pioneer High School episode referring to ongoing discrimination in our high schools. What can the board do to see that this matter is a top priority initiative that is addressed and solved, and that there's a safe environment for those airing their concerns?
So the first thing the board could do is make it a top priority. And not skirt away from it. I feel like, especially as a parent of color, this stuff at Pioneer isn't something new. It's something that my children experience both at Pioneer and even at Ann Arbor Open. I think that it makes people uncomfortable, so people aren't really willing to really deal with it because it makes them have to do self-examination, which is what's needed. The racial bias training for the teachers, administrative, and the board is vital, a part of that. A vital part of that. We have to recognize, and I say we, all of us, have to recognize our own individual biases before we can even attempt to try to equalize things and try to make it more equitable. I love the idea of working with the community and getting voices. And I love the idea of working with the University of Michigan. I love the idea that Krystle has about the tracking system. I think that's very important. I think it's a lot more common than people are saying, and even just as running. I know what my personal experiences have been, and I didn't take it all the way up to the board. I didn't even know that was an option. So, and I've had at least 4 different experiences with 2 different children. So I think that to make this a priority, you actually have to make it a priority and stop running from it and pretending like it's not happening. And work with the community, and also listen to the students when they're telling you that these things are happening. Children, I call them young people, children, whatever. They are often discredited. And when you are poor, and if you are low income, if you are a person of color, if you are a special education family, you are discarded. If you have plenty of money in Ann Arbor or plenty of influences, then your needs are met almost immediately. That's unacceptable. So first we need a change in mindset. We need to change in our mindset.
Okay, thank you, candidates. Now we'll move to question 4. Okay, and this is question 4. After the recent successful passage of the millage to improve facilities, all actions that will be taken in redoing the buildings and grounds should include the city's goals around carbon emissions and greenhouse gases. Would you support the establishment of a sustainability officer and a citizens committee that would oversee this project? Why or why not? Ms. DuPree.
A fast moment to think about that. So I think it's very important that we reach our carbon neutrality goals, or at least set a very clear and tangible path to working towards our carbon neutrality goals by 2030. That's actually something I started to learn a lot more about when I decided to run for school board, because that's something that affects folks in our community that may not even have children. So one of the things is I would support doing this as long as I had enough information on what the responsibilities were expected to, like what we're exactly going to be overseeing. One of my biggest things is responsible contracting. So would this person be involved in making sure that, we're involved in responsible contracting? So depending upon what the overseeing actually looks like and the responsibility of this committee and of this officer, I would definitely support it to make sure that, again, we're doing things responsibly. We're making sure that everyone's involved is getting paid a living wage, and that we are adequately working toward those goals of carbon neutrality in a way that's fair and equitable across our district.
Okay, thank you, Ms. DuPree. And now Mr. Gaynor.
Thank you. When this bond was presented, the board discussed 3 different amounts to ask for, anywhere from like 600 million, 800 million to this amazing figure of $1 billion. This is over 20 years. Given the state of our buildings, there was a need for it. I supported the highest amount precisely because we needed that much money to ensure carbon neutrality goals. In fact, I reached out to the Ecology Center and the Sierra Club, local chapters, and discussed with them the issue. And, I feel I was somewhat instrumental in getting their endorsements for the bond, with the assurance that I would do everything I could to push the district toward this carbon neutrality. I'm not sure we're going to reach the goal at 2030 because we have the money coming in over 20 years. But I do think it's important that we set goals for every 5 years, and that every decision we make is done in terms of this ultimate goal. We have it was part of a pilot project. We have 4 electric buses and charging station, and we have to keep that up. 30 seconds, there's so much to say. I do believe that it makes sense to hire a sustainability manager. I've worked with Missy Stultz at the city, and she does amazing work in terms of informing people. We need somebody dedicated to work with students and teachers to make sure sustainability is a feature of everyday life in the classroom and at the schools. And I won't continue that commitment.
Thank you, Mr. Gaynor. Ms. James.
Once again, please repeat the question.
Okay. After the recent successful passage of the millage to improve facilities, all actions that will be taken in redoing the buildings and grounds should include the city's goals around carbon emissions and greenhouse gases. Would you support the establishment of a sustainability officer and a citizens committee that would oversee this project? Why or why not?
So I think I, once again, have to agree with Krystle in the sense of it depends on what their responsibility is. I do think that we need someone to oversee it. One of our top priorities should be, because we live in Ann Arbor, which our arbors is protecting our environment. I think that it's all of our responsibilities, especially if we value Ann Arbor, to do this as smoothly and quickly as possible. As far as someone oversight be in charge of it, I think it's very important, because if we want it done right, we have to have someone to have the oversight of it and where the buck will stop, and someone that will report to the board what's going on. But again, it depends on exactly what it is that they will be covering until I know more, or until that is decided, and who decides what they will cover. So I think it's a good idea in theory. I would love to see how it would actually be in practice.
Okay, thank you, Ms. James. Now, Ms. Kennel.
So this is actually something that's really near to my heart. I full-heartedly support us having a sustainability officer in conjunction with the city and creating a citizens committee that would be made up of our teachers and our students and maybe some facility managers. I think that we need to work to this goal. This is a very crucial point. There was a recent article that came out of UCLA that stated that our students that are in the 5th grade right now will have a shortened life expectancy because of the fact that they're going to die early because of the environmental changes that are happening right now. We need to work as a population to commit to this. The bond passage is going to allow us the time and energy to really dig into this and make it a top priority. Every improvement we make in the schools moving forward should have this as one of the top goals, and it needs to be done equitably. So if schools are in greater disrepair and they're going to be the priority, then we can launch these models with those schools. And I think by having an oversight of an officer and a committee, we're going to have a lot of great input from our district. I think, like as Krystle stated before, you know, we have the University of Michigan here. We have a lot of resources that we can partner with, and then we can increase our purchasing power for some of these improvements by working together with the city. So if this is a in-concert plan, then I think that the improvements between the city and the schools is going to happen at a faster rate, and it's going to be consistent, and it will become ingrained in our everyday existence. So hopefully this, along with creating a curriculum that helps our students learn every day that they can make a difference in the environment that surrounds them, both physically and help with their social and emotional health, I think that it's worth every effort we can to make sure that we have the right people in place to help oversee that this is a priority in our district.
Okay, thank you, candidates. Now we move into question 5, and it's going to have to be our last question because of time limitations. And this one is regarding the schools of choice dilemma. Ann Arbor was late in coming to the table about schools of choice for a variety of reasons. Since opening its doors to schools of choice, many students from other districts have chosen to attend. There's a staggering number of students from just the Ypsilanti Community School District alone. How do you feel about the funding inequities among the school districts and the $1 billion funding boost, which makes us even more attractive and part of our allure. Think too of the increasing disparity between the have and have-nots. It's sure to get worse. Do we have an obligation to figure out a fairness doctrine, how that could work? How could we establish a we're all in this together kind of mantra? Is it our job to worry about this? Yes, the schools of choice dilemma is, like the COVID-19 situation, a big, big question. So please tell us here the most important things you do as a board member to address the concerns about it. We'll start this time with Mr. Gaynor.
All of the candidates have equity as a central goal this year, and I'm so pleased to see that. When I first came on the board, I was told by a current board member that my concern now should be just for the students and families of Ann Arbor, not for anybody else. But growing up in Detroit, seeing what's happened to that district, seeing what the state government has done, and looking at the inequitable funding that the state has overseen for the last couple of decades and beyond, as a person who cares about all children, I have to take a stand here. In fact, I've been the lone person to vote against the Ann Arbor's school of choice policy. On my first vote, I wrote out a 3-page single-page statement and added charts that I'm willing to share with anybody who asks for it. It's a very complex question. Families who are priced out of Ann Arbor but had gone to school here, they want to continue. I totally understand that. But if we're looking at equity, if we're looking at all of our children in the region, it's just not a fair system. It leaves too many people out. Ypsilanti has 4,000 students. Now 1,000 students or more are coming to school in Ann Arbor. And that has such a disparate effect on the finances for Ypsilanti and for the families who remain, who can't send their kids here. I fought for more equitable funding for the state. I've worked as part of my work with the Washtenaw Association of School Boards, ways to mitigate this. Unfortunately, the wealthier districts in the county have no interest in sharing those resources, but I'm going to keep working at this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gaynor. Now, Ms. James.
Okay. So I must admit, at one point in time, I thought it was an awesome idea until I talked to Jeff as I decided to run. I never really thought about the perspective of how it was negatively affecting the city in which the kids were coming from. That's a problem, especially since it is a lower income community. When all things are said and done, Ann Arbor has tons of money. And we have tons of families here with money. The PTOs are always raising crazy money. But once the money is gone for Ypsilanti, it's gone. So I think that it's I feel like it's kind of immoral that we're taking money from poor people to make sure that we have more money. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. We're giving school a choice, and yes, we're giving opportunities to people, but we're only giving it to people that parents can drive them here, parents that have the resources. So not only are we taking resources from a community that has a lower income, we're making it harder for the most impoverished, for lack of better terminology, the people that don't have the money, the schools that don't have the money. And it's just not cool. So I don't think I like it.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. James. Now, Ms. Kennel.
Thank you. So I think this is probably one of the driving topics that actually helped me decide to run. I think as I started looking at the patterns of in-district transfer and school of choice in the city of Ann Arbor at schools the last couple of years, and then really digging into the board's presentations over the last 5 to 6 years, you really see a trend. Our school of choice back in 2014 was around 51 kids, and now not this year, but the year before, it was up to 511 students. That's a lot of students coming to Ann Arbor from outside of the district. And I think that there are definitely people that have good reasons. You know, if there's teachers that are working here and they're bringing their kids with them so they can go to school here because they're in the district and it's more convenient for them. I think that there are definitely good reasons for school of choice, but I don't think we should be actively recruiting students away based on the fact that we have the resources. I think there also needs to be an in-depth look at our building capacities. A lot of times we're overpopulating some schools that are desirable in Ann Arbor, which leave holes in other ones. I mean, King Elementary School had modules put in because they allowed, and it wasn't due to school, the actual district students around it, it was due to in-district transfer and school of choice. So I think that we need to make sure that we are making good choices for our district. Yes, we want to make sure that our schools are full and we're not having to lay off teachers, because that headcount is how we make our general fund dollars. But I think that we need to not strip, like Jamilla said, we need to not strip the districts around us of their students, leaving them with less money. And I think we need to educate the public to better understand how that funding happens at the state level and then change it at the root source. So I think that we need to go to the state and actually change the rulings. So if, in regards to your fairness doctrine, I think that it would be a great implementation if the board could get together and come up with that.
Thank you, Ms. Kennel. And now, Ms. DuPree.
Ooh, so school of choice. School of choice has actually turned out to be a pretty hot topic here lately. So for me, I am not really a supporter of school of choice. It's one of those things that sounds really good in theory, and then in application, it's something different. As everyone has mentioned, it actually takes funding from the child's home district, and it leaves students who are unable to get transportation, whose families do not have the means and resources, with a district that is underfunded. Particularly in YCS, they've had problems before with being able to receive technology for them to even participate in standardized testing. Meanwhile, a lot of their students are coming to this district. We also think about per pupil funding as it relates to special education. Many parents come to Ann Arbor Public Schools for special education services. I was told when my son was in kindergarten to stay in Ann Arbor Public Schools to make sure that he got the services that he needs. Well, you get a higher per pupil funding for special education students, and those students are coming over here. So it is really draining the district next to us. I think that, you know, coming up with a fairness plan is the right thing to do. Also, being able to talk to people in YCS and seeing how the school of choice program is actually affecting their district and affecting their students is very, very important. We need to have these conversations on both sides of the aisle. As was mentioned, it makes sense. Like, I work at Avalon Housing at Caraway as a community youth coordinator. Okay, if the buildings were open and I still lived on that border of Pittsfield and Ypsi, it would probably make sense for me to bring my son here because it'd be faster for me to pick him up from school. I am a single parent. I have no childcare. So that would have worked for me. So there are those situations. But as was mentioned, when we were actively recruiting, it looks like targeting. And then we are pulling away resources from the district right next to us and making it so it's much more difficult for this district to compete academically.
Thank you, candidates. It's now time for closing statements. And as I mentioned previously, we'll begin in reverse order from what we did the opening statements in. So our first closing statement will come from Ms. Kennel.
I just want to start off by saying thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum for us. It's always wonderful. We've done these a couple nights in a row now, and it's so great to get to hear everyone's perspective. I'm looking forward to whoever ends up on the board moving forward, because I think that we all have a very collaborative spirit. We all are similarly rooted in our information. We're all looking to improve the educational system that's already here. So for me, I am running because I am looking to increase our equity across the district. I'm looking to improve our transparency across the district, and I'm looking to improve our inclusivity. So those are the three goals that I wish to work on if I'm elected to the board. And I'm looking forward to working on it with the existing board members that are currently there and will be running in 2 years, and anybody else that's voted in, because I feel that we're all ready to make a difference and make a change and really sharpen our focus on education that's in our district.
Thank you, Ms. Kennel. And now the closing statement from Ms. James.
So, I'm not an educator.
I don't have a whole bunch of degrees. I'm a nurse and I'm a parent. I'm running for school board because I want to take care of all of our kids, not just the ones that's going to college. And I want to prepare our kids for the real world. I think that's kind of makes me the outlier of all the people running because my focus is about dealing with the children holistically. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, but my focus is on the kids. Social emotional learning, money management, skilled trades. It's about taking care of them and preparing them for our current world, not the one in the past. The testing, the continuous testing, the inequity, it's just a mess. And no one in the meantime are focusing on what the kids really need. We had recess. We had life skills. We had skilled trades. And when we left high school, we could more or less survive. We may not have done it well, but we could. They can't today. I want to be on the board to make sure that these things are a priority. And I want them to take care of our children. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. James. Now we're ready for the closing statement from Mr. Gaynor.
In my 4 years on the board, I've been known somewhat of a gadfly, someone who will ask the difficult questions, someone who will challenge the superintendent, someone who will be a voice of dissent when my conscience says that's what needs to happen. I think that's important. I have to say I'm thrilled with the candidates that are up for election this year. This board will be strong. They're caring, they're knowledgeable, they're smart. In fact, I think so much of them that on my campaign website, gaynorforaaps.com, see how I got that plug in there? I have links to all of the other candidates' websites. And I'm sure we'd all like to have people request yard signs from us. But back to the issue. I have 5 items under my value and focus statement. 3 of them were discussed in questions today. Advocating for racial and social justice, monitoring the $1 billion bond and carbon neutrality, and how do we work out the school year. To that, I would add the need for openness and transparency, fostering community input and discussion, and critical thinking and problem solving, as well as enabling and supporting teacher professionalism and empowerment. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Gaynor. Finally, we have your closing statement, Ms. DuPree.
Thank you. So again, my name is Krystle DuPree, and I thank you guys so much for having me.
Did we lock up there?
Oh. Can you hear me now? Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. Again, my name is Krystle DuPree, and thank you guys for having me so much. Like I tell people a lot, this is my first time running for anything. Didn't run for student body president, prom queen, none of these things. But this is very, very important to me. I'm running because I care, because I'm a parent who has a child who uses special education services, and I've had to advocate for him. I'm running because I'm an activist, and there are students in need of that sort of voice on the board to push their demands, such as having a discrimination tracking system for our district. I'm running because, you know, I have really dedicated myself to service and advocacy. Again, I am an Army veteran and a social worker. So both those things really show my dedication to community. One of the benefits of me having been in the Army is I know how to work with very different personalities and still keep it mission focused. Mission focused means we're advocating for our parents, our students, our teachers. We're working towards our carbon neutrality goals. We are participating in responsible contracting and looking out for our union members. We are doing all these things, and we're doing so in a way to make sure that our board is effective and we're moving in an equitable direction. So I think that I would be a good addition to the board because I am all about teamwork and all about equity, and also making sure that we are being held accountable by our community.
Thanks to all of you for participating in this valuable session. I will now turn this back over to Lynn, our league representative, for closing comments.
Thank you, Chris. The league thanks the candidates for participating in tonight's forum and to those who contributed questions. All our candidate forums will be available for streaming on your computer or smartphone. Go to our website, lwvanarbor.org, and look for the link to the programs. In addition, the forums can be viewed on Community Television Network and the League's election information website, vote411.org. Please urge your friends and neighbors to watch these forums too. For additional nonpartisan information on candidates and ballot issues, go to vote411.org, the League's voter resource guide covering local, state, and federal candidates, and current proposals that will appear on your ballot. As a reminder, all registered voters may cast an absentee ballot. With the challenges that have been created by COVID-19 and confusion regarding registration and voting procedures, the League encourages you to vote absentee as soon as possible after you feel knowledgeable about the candidates and ballot issues. If mailing your ballot, please do so by October 20th to be sure there is enough time for your ballot to reach your clerk by Election Day. Or you may deliver your ballot in person to your clerk's office or drop box by Election Day. The most important thing is to make sure that you vote in the November 3rd general election. Thank you.